Hello, everyone. My name is Carlos. I'm a facilitator in our community outreach program, and I want to welcome everyone to Free Minds on the Same Page Right Week, a mutual exchange between incarcerated poets and our community. We thank you all for joining us today. Our poet ambassador today is Poet Ambassador Joel. He was incarcerated in 2024 and has been home for about 2 years now. And he has been a free member since about 2018. So I want to first start saying thank you, Joel, for being here, and definitely want to give you a chance to like just introduce yourself real quick if you don't mind.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. My name is Joel Smith. Uh, like you said, been a part of Free Minds for quite a few years. Been home from incarceration after 20 years in prison. I've been home about 2 years now. Um, been a poet ambassador since I've been home. Had the opportunity to work with you, man, and everybody else so fair. Uh, Born and raised here in Washington, and got one daughter, who I'm very close with. I'm a certified personal trainer. Uh, got a few other opportunities that I'm currently pursuing, but I'm an entrepreneur. Uh, and that's about the long and the short of it.
Thank you, Joel. Michelle, if you could read this poem for us.
Absolutely. And this is my poem. This is one I wrote when I was in solitary confinement. It's called Gift Not Given. I wrote this September the 8th, 2021. Lessons being lost on me while I'm being lost in the lessons. Being possessed by the pursuit of possession. First faces I remember became first faces I forgot. Staring at my reflection for an inspection of my imperfections. Reading Hebrew and Arabic, looking for the plot, chasing what I had, missing what I got. Missing the dead, hating the living. Candles in the dark room illuminate those gifts taken, not those given.
Powerful poem, Joel. Tell me, you say you wrote this while you was in the shoe. What inspired you to write this poem? And just so people, in case nobody don't know, shoe just means segregated housing, or special housing unit.
Right, right.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And thanks for giving them that clarification. So the reason I'm home is because of a law that was put forth called the IRA. It was actually a amendment of a law that had already been passed for people who have been convicted of crimes when they were juveniles. So because of frontal lobe development and cognitive maturity and decision making and a lot of other heavy scientific things, there were people out here advocating for guys like myself who were young when I caught my crime to be able to be released. A large part of what they would look at to deem if you were able to be released was your conduct inside of institutions. And there's a saying, it's called Murphy's Law, that whenever can happen, will happen at the most unopportune time, right? So I hadn't been to the shoe, like we call it, the whole solitary confinement. I hadn't been there in maybe 7 years previous to this time that I wrote this poem. But of course, this time is when I have my case in. This is when I'm fighting for my life. This is when I need to see the judge and the court to see me as a rehabilitated, redeemable man. So to be in a solitary confinement made me almost angry that they had passed a law that gave me an opportunity to be free, right? Because I felt, once again, it was a gift, right? So it was a gift that I thought and felt I may have squandered, right? So in a very distorted way, I almost wish Ira didn't exist because now I feel this. Any other time I've gone in solitary confinement, you know how that is, and it's just a part of it. We always say that's a little part of the jail, right? You know what I mean? So, but now I'm in here, and it's all this weight on it, and that was
Yeah.
the first time that I had ever, in all those years, actually had to be like, man, I might have jacked something off. So that's kind of the mind I was in when I wrote it. Just thinking about the duality of here go this gift.
Yeah.
People like Charles Allen and Cory Booker and so many other people in the community, that didn't know me
Yeah.
personally,
Yeah.
right? But they were out here actually advocating for me. And there's always guys who have been released under the IRA who were
Yeah.
writing letters for me and getting support. Free Minds were supporting me. So I felt that I may have disappointed people, So that felt like a gift. I didn't even want the gift at that point, but of course it
It's
worked out well. So
a strong poem. What's the feeling like you reading it now? you out in freedom and stuff like that, talking about that moment then, especially.
Yeah, yeah. It makes me believe that every moment is the biggest moment while you're in the moment, right? Because
Okay.
now that moment feels so insignificant because when I found my motion and I had done so many good things and accomplished so many things that the government didn't even fight my petition, right? My lawyer submitted it and the government said, man, whatever the judge say, we go with it. Which is literally the best you can ask for in that situation, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the best you can ask for. The government saying, man, we got no contest, man. We can go into the judge, right? So look, reading it now, I feel like I've aged more than just the 3 years. Or what that I say 21, so the more than the right 5 years. I feel like I've aged at least a decade since then. Because walking out of those doors and being back around family and getting a new perspective and seeing that that was a small moment. But in that moment it felt like the biggest, right? So
The grandest, yep. I definitely understand. I definitely relate, Joel. Listen, when you introduce yourself as a poet ambassador.
mhm.
And again, just for those that are here for the first time, poet ambassador is loosely like we represent those that are not here, meaning those members that are still incarcerated. I'm gonna share my screen real quick, and you read this poem, one of
Absolutely.
our incarcerated members.
And this one is called Preparing by Tara H. Preparing to live life on life's terms, to say what I mean what I say, to be strong and stand firm. One day at a time sounds good, but I must take it 1 second at a time. Prepare to be the best mother, the best version of myself without losing my mind. Educational programs and job training to help build a strong foundation, maintaining level up every day. My goal is to keep elevating, preparing for what it takes. It takes to remain free, preparing, learning how to never stop loving the new me, how to hold my own hands, to walk with my head held high, stride to fly sky high, soar like an eagle. My next move may be my best move. Pride to the side can never be too prepared, so I prepare for more. For what's next as I open new doors. All I want is what's better, the greater things in life. So I'm preparing myself for more. I can never stop preparing to be prepared. So I'm very prepared to keep preparing.
What you think
Wow.
about this
Yeah,
poem?
that was powerful. I think she's in the mind frame that she should be in. You know, I think that my comrade is thinking the way she should be thinking. One of the things that I did when I was in there was read insatiably, right? And I tried to load my toolbox up with as much as I possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
And I often tell people, like, the personal training thing that I do now is probably one of the things I least thought I would be doing, right? But I got it anyway because it was available. And I said, you know what, let me throw this in the toolbox because it may be useful. So I love to hear the comrades talk about being prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I love the line about the day by day, but even second by second,
Yeah.
you know,
And,
because,
and it's
yeah.
no,
Because,
so what I
yeah,
was gonna say it coincides what you were talking about. You talk about preparations. You talk
yeah.
about being at a point, that fork in the road where it's like, which way is it gonna go, right? And all you have is the preparation that you made forth, right? Because you spoke about IRA and many other laws that are out there, right? But IRA specifically is not a thing that is given to us like automatically. You got to work for it, right? And that work, like it's not as easy. So I definitely want to thank you for that, sharing that. And like last question,
Yep.
education. What does that mean to you? What did that mean to you while you was incarcerated? What does it mean to you now?
Great question. I often tell a story about going to sentencing and my lawyer explaining to me the difference between concurrent and consecutive. And at that time, I had a brand new baby. I had a wife. I had a family, people that were really counting on me. And I remember going into court and knowing that I was completely outside of my depth because I couldn't even remember these two very important words. One meant I had to do 10 years. The other one meant I had to do 30 years. So these
Mhm.
words were very important, but I had not worked my mental muscle for years, right? I
Mhm.
was ever stupid in school. School was difficult, but I think you may know when you get outside of that and you've been outside so long
Mhm.
where you're not even reading, right, as a habit, right? So you kind of forget the habit. So now anyway, I get to jail and I'm going through that. And I knew in that moment that I couldn't be stupid again. I knew
Mhm.
in that moment, that sentencing, that whatever I had to do moving forward, I could not find myself in a predicament that my wife and my daughter were asking me questions that were impactful to my life, and I didn't have the answer. Not because the answer wasn't available, not because the information was available, because I had not done the work to be able to answer the question. So from that moment on, education became my anchor, right? And you talk about IRA, that is the thing that got me over the hump, right? Had I not had been so diligent about education, a funny thing about IRA is no one knew it was coming.
That's right.
So people who are going to get incarcerated now, they have a much more advantage because they'll get their sentence and they'll probably start preparing day one.
Mm-hmm.
So for the first group of us that got it, you kind of have already been doing that preparation in faith of just something.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get no time cut for my degrees. I didn't get no time cut for being an electrician. Those things wasn't, but I still did them anyway. So when you talk about it, I kind of felt that it kept me occupied. For one thing, me and my friends often said, you see a lot more stabbings in the rec yard than education. And I often tell guys that now, they call me from home. I can't tell you how to do your time, but I can give you a fact. There's going to be a lot less stabbings in education than the rec yard. You know, so for me, I chose the education because I ain't want to be around the stabbing, obviously. That kept me out the way of that. And then in finding something that to do with time, it ended up helping me get free. Because when the judge looks at it, he says, you know what? Yeah, you may have made some mistakes, but I see that when you didn't have to,
that's right.
You were actually preparing when nobody told you to. You were doing it for your own preparation. So that's my take on it.
And thank you for sharing. And that is the thing for a lot of our members. That is the situation for a lot of our members, a lot of us that are waiting to come home, right? And so let me ask you this last thing in real brief, right? The folks, especially those that are here for the first time tonight, they're about to partake in the commenting part of the poetry, right? According to you, how important is that commentary, those comments, those encouraging words? How important is that for you, and what advice do you have for those that are here, for them to connect to the poetry?
I would say two things. One thing that I would say for myself is when you create art, whatever it is, a movie, a picture, right? It's only validated if someone accepts it as art, right? So the comments made me a poet. Free Minds made me a poet. The people writing on my poetry when I was in prison saying, this is great, I love this line right here, that made me a poet. I didn't make myself a poet. So that's how big those comments were in my journey, that I wasn't a poet. I was just a guy that just wrote some stuff for Free Minds, and then real people in the world that read poetry wrote me back and say, man, this is a great poem. And that made me in that moment feel like a real poet, if that makes any sense.
Makes
the only advice that I would give is just don't criticize, right? If it's some misspellings in there, maybe the grammar, just, let the people express how they express and encourage them, So I would just say that, right? Like, when we in there, we got enough criticism. We don't need no more of that. We need love in there.
I love that, Joel. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Thank you all and everyone else for being here. Please click on the link so you can partake into in the poetry and in the commentary. Whenever a Free Minds poem is read, hope is spread. So thank you all for spreading hope to for all of us. Also, if you wish to make a donation, please visit our website. Anything counts. Any little dollar, that's at least the amount we need to send a mail back to one of our members. So anything counts. So please enjoy the poems, and we look forward to seeing you on our next Friday night in June. Thank you again, Joel.
Thank you so much. Have a great one.